most of the people in Thailand feel unempowered. They don't feel like they have the authority to say things. They don't feel like they have the power to make a decision. In one of the previous episodes, I was talking about what I think is the darkest side of Thailand. I was talking about the aspect of social hierarchy in Thailand. If you want to watch that episode, I would recommend you going here. For this episode, this is the continuity of what I have said before. This is about why I think a lot of Thai people are unempowered. I'm going to explore this topic, why I think Thai people aren't quite as empowered as they should be. I'm going to give you some examples. A few weeks ago, a friend of mine reached out to me. So a friend of mine is a non-Thai person living in Thailand for a while now. He's working for a company that does examination for a language test. What happened is this: he did an exam for the whole day, one day. And at the end of the day, he had to rush to the hospital. So he had a bit of a health scare. A few weeks after that, he looked into his payment and he realized that the payment for the work that he's done for that day was missing. And the truth came out that he couldn't collect the payment, or that payment wasn't even registered because he forgot to clock in the hours of work. So he did all the work, but because he was rushing to the hospital, he didn't sign off for the work that he's done. He didn't think at first it was a huge thing. He was just talking to the HR and everyone knew that he was working on that day. They even filmed him on that day working, so they would even have the video record of him being there doing the examination. But the HR people argued with him that by this rule, which he wasn't informed about, if you don't clock in your work hours by 14 days after the date of work, then you can't get that payment. And he was raging. He was very angry because this doesn't make sense to him at all. He's done his work, but now he's not going to get paid. So they communicated back and forth. And at the very end, well, I don't know how it's going right now, but they told him that they could probably offer him half of what he was supposed to be paid. They said they felt bad for him, but rule is rule, even though it wasn't informed to him, but there was this rule written somewhere. And when my friend told me this story, it reminds me of some other stories that happened to me in the past. In one of the stories, I was playing tennis with a friend of mine. Well, saying playing tennis is a bit of an exaggeration. So a friend of mine who's never played tennis before in his life asked me to give him a free tennis lesson. I was very young then and I was very naive. I don't think that I would like to teach anyone tennis ever again. This is not a sport you can teach someone in 1 hour. Anyway, so we went to our university's courts, which is like the 10 tennis courts in the facility. So we used just one of the courts, and at the time that we played, it was at noon, so there was nobody else because it was raging hot. I knew that there's going to be a lot of balls flying around, so I brought like all of my old tennis balls, as many as possible. I think I brought like 20 or something with me. I started feeding my friends these tennis balls until this staff, which is a woman, came to us, said to us that you can't use more than 8 balls at the time. It's the rule of the facility. And I was like, wait, I don't understand this. There was nobody else and we could not have annoyed anyone. We couldn't have interrupted anyone. Nobody else is playing. So the fact that the balls is flying around couldn't actually hurt anybody else at all. And she's like, doesn't matter. It's a rule, just follow it. And then it came to my realization. The real purpose of this rule is that the facility doesn't want people to coach, doesn't want private tutoring, doesn't want private tennis lessons without informing the facility first. So I think that's actually the main reason why they don't allow people using more than 8 balls. Because when you coach tennis professionally, then you will use like, gazillion of balls. So I told her that,
Just look at how silly we are. There's no way that we are coaching here.
but she still said, doesn't matter. It's the rule. I don't want to have any problem with my manager. Just do what I say. In another incident, I was at a mall. This was close to, I think, 15 years ago. I think that was at the eve of smartphones. So back then, we still use this phone that is not completely smart yet. And I carried with me the whole time like this digital camera because I like taking photos. I was in this mall in Bangkok. We were sitting at a patio at a coffee shop, just that was attached to the mall, but that was inside the mall, but also outside the mall at the same time, if you know what I mean. I saw something on the opposite side of the road, which was enticing. So I grabbed my camera and took photo of that thing on the opposite side of the road. Came walking in the security guard. He said, no, 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 no. You can't take photos here in the mall. And I was like, hold on. I'm taking a photo in the mall, but not of the mall. I'm actually taking photos of something outside the mall. He's like, no, 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 don't argue with me. This is the rule. I have been told of this rule, so I have to follow it. I'm like, this doesn't make sense. And I was a law student. Now you know that sometimes malls and commercial places don't want you to take photos of the interior and their products because of the copyrights, trademarks, patent, so on and so forth. So that makes sense, but I'm actually taking photos of something that I spot outside of the mall. It is as if I were in an art exhibition and by the window. And I know that I can't take photos of the exhibits, but I can still take photos of the things that I saw outside of the window from the exhibition hall, for example. Anyway, he didn't listen to me. I was a bit furious. Well, not really furious, but puzzled and a little bit upset. I told you all of these stories, the stories of the tennis balls, the story of my friends not getting paid for the work he's done, as an example of what I think is the problem with a Thai attitude or a societal problem in Thailand. And it's the fact that most of the people in Thailand feel unempowered. They don't feel like they have the authority to say things. They don't feel like they have the power to make a decision. And this thing would happen again and again. And when I talk to my friends who live here in Thailand, who's not from Thailand, they would always point out that when it comes to dealing with staff, often the staff in Thailand would be a bit paralyzed and a bit afraid of making the decisions. Let's say if the manager isn't there and you want to ask them to do something in that cafe or the restaurant, the staff would just looking around like, oh, we have to wait for the manager to make this decision. And sometimes the managers themselves wouldn't feel empowered to make that decision for their establishment. Sometimes they would like to talk to owners and stuff. And some of these decisions are as small as whether or not you would give free meal for the person who eats in the restaurant whose order has been forgotten. So I would have thought that if this has happened in many other places where your orders was forgotten and then you got served the meal, let's say an hour and a half after you enter the restaurant, then your meal is probably just free, or then you were given like free champagne or a big discount or something. But in Thailand, it's not a given because I think most of the time they feel like, oh, I have to ask the biggest manager possible or the owner of the restaurant first. In this episode, I just want to say that these people feel the lack of empowerment because in Thailand, there is a lot of social hierarchy that people seem to subscribe to since birth. I think there's always this gap between each social level. I noticed that people would be quite reluctant or quite scared of making decisions that would upset people who are in the better levels of the society. I think this totally comes down to the fact that nobody feels they are equal to the next person that is next to them. Everyone seems to be aware. Everyone seems to have to know where their place is in the society at all time. I'm not saying this as a bad thing or anything, because I do believe that everything is relative and there's always the shadow and the light, and light in the shadow. I think in this case, the fact that there's social hierarchy, the fact that people don't feel super empowered, also make the society feel very agreeable. And that also makes Thailand, to a lot of people, very charming. But I just want to point out that this thing exists. In hindsight, if most people feel unempowered, it means a small group of people is probably over-empowered or monopolizing power, which may continue to widen the gap in the society. And if anything at all, I think in the long run, it could either, number one, give some Thai people an existential crisis at some point in their life. I can imagine that there's a lot of repression of feelings, emotions, opinions. Like the culture of healthy, constructive debate isn't promoted out of how the society is organized. So I think sometimes people want to vent, sometimes people want to argue, but they can't do it because there's no platform. And the second thing, I think when it comes to the advancement of academia, when it comes to advancement of anthropology or social science, I think it's important for people to be able to question things freely. And I think because of the social hierarchy and the fact that everyone don't feel empowered the same way, I think people in Thailand tend to not pose questions. People in Thailand tend to not think of questions because questions could bring them problems. So just follow these rules and go with it. And I could see that this, in some way, prevents Thailand from moving to the next step. Again, I'm not saying that it's a must that we need to move to the next step. And I think a lot of us or a lot of you guys that live in Thailand probably benefit from the fact that Thailand is what it is until now. And maybe you won't like it anymore when Thai society become a bit different and people start to question things more. I don't know. I'm just gonna pose this question right here for you to think about. I have this theory that when it comes to following the rules, I think Thai people can be quite arbitrary. And it's true that Thai people can be quite rule abiding, as exemplified by all of the stories that I told you. But I think at the same time, Thai people also like to break certain rules as well. I think the key things that would make Thai people follow one rule and not the other is whether or not that rule is interpersonal, and the fact that whether or not people would shame them for not following that rule. So when it comes to rules that are interpersonal, I'm talking about the rules that were applied in offices, in workplaces. It's usually these private rules. And if you don't follow this rule, then you can upset someone who is the manager, who is the big boss, who is just one level above you, who would scold at you, who would tell you that you don't do the right thing. So I think Thai people have this tendency to follow this kind of rule because they don't want to have to encounter this sort of being scolded at. As well, the rules like wearing the mask during COVID. This is a rule that is very interpersonal because I think that Thai people think that if they don't wear the mask and if they bring COVID to their family members, then they would feel responsible for making their family members contracting the disease. But when it comes to certain rules or sometimes laws that aren't too interpersonal or not obvious that it's interpersonal, you can see that a lot of Thai people won't follow them so much. So for example, when it comes to wearing helmets, if you get caught for not wearing helmets, and it's your own responsibility. It's the police that would catch you and then find you, but you don't get scolded at by someone that you work with. There's no personal relationship between you and the policeman. Obviously, if you have an accident, if you are injured because of the accident, it has this interpersonal aspect to it as well, but it's just not so primary. I think the interpersonal aspect of thing needs to be quite primary, needs to be quite obvious for the Thai people to think that this rule is a must for them to abide by. I just realized something. I think Thai people usually follow rules that could get them shamed or scolded more because of this whole losing face and saving face culture. But when it comes to rules that don't really affect their face, I think Thai people become a lot more flexible. And maybe this all sounds a bit pessimistic, but that is just my observation. Again, I just want to remind you that everything that I say needs to be taken with a pinch of salt. When I say Thai people, or even when I say foreigners, there are always exceptions. No single Thai person acts the same way. I'm only just talking about this from the aspect of looking at things from a broader perspective and then trying to go deeper. I'm not meaning to say that every single Thai person has to behave this or this way. This is for social investigation. The purpose of this is to find out what kind of quality people tend to have in common and not to stereotype people in any possible ways. That's it. That's the end of the episode. If you like this episode, I'm sure that you're going to like the rest of the videos I have on this channel. Please click like, subscribe, and feel free to support me on buymeacoffee.com/therealthailander. Thank you.